All right, let's dive into a question that, let's be honest, we've all asked ourselves at some point. It's a question that has driven people for, well, forever, and it really gets to the heart of what it means to be human.
It seems so simple, doesn't it? But philosophers and scientists have been wrestling with this one for thousands of years. So today, we're going to break down what the latest science, ancient wisdom, and even artificial intelligence have to say about it. Let's get into it.
Okay, so first things first. Before we can even start the search for happiness, we need a map. We need to agree on what we're actually looking for, because, as it turns out, it's a whole lot more complex than just feeling good.
The official term scientists use is subjective well-being. And a good way to think about it is like a three-legged stool. The first leg is your life evaluation. That's the big picture view, your overall satisfaction with your life. The second is affect. That's your daily emotional weather, the ups and downs. And the third leg is eudaimonia, a great Greek word that means having a sense of purpose, feeling like your life matters. For real stability, you need all three.
So, if that's our definition, how on earth do you measure it across billions of people from all different cultures? Well, this is where things get really fascinating, because a huge scientific debate is raging right now between old-school methods and brand-new technology.
For a really long time, the main tool we had was the survey. Researchers would ask people pretty direct questions like, all things considered, how satisfied are you with your life these days? And the results, year after year, consistently showed these massive differences between countries.
And here's a great example of what that data looks like in the real world. This is from a survey in Germany. You can see how the answers are distributed with a clear average score around a 7 or 8 out of 10. When you compare these averages from country to country, that's how you get those famous world happiness rankings.
But what if asking people how they feel isn't the only way to find out? What if there's a more direct way to see emotion, without even asking a question?
This is where things get wild. A recent study used AI to analyze facial expressions from public footage in 8 cities across the globe. We're talking everywhere from Tokyo to New York. The AI was programmed to spot emotions, and what it found was pretty stunning. You can see how these bars overlap here. It means there was no statistically significant difference in the number of happy faces the AI saw, no matter the city. So we're left with this really cool puzzle. Do the surveys tell the true story, that some nations are just way happier than others? Or does this new AI data suggest that, deep down, the way we express our joy is pretty much universal? It's a question science is still trying to figure out.
Okay, so that brings us from how we measure happiness to what actually causes it. And we have to start with the biggest, most common question of all, the one about money.
For years, I'm sure you've heard about that famous study that claimed happiness basically flatlines once you earn about $75,000 a year. Well, it turns out that whole idea has been turned on its head. The newest research shows that for most people, well-being just keeps on climbing with income, well past that old number.
So, why the big switch? A really groundbreaking paper in 2023 actually brought the original researchers from both the old and the new studies together to hash it out, and they found the problem wasn't the people, it was the measurement tool. The first study scale was just too blunt. It couldn't really tell the difference between someone who was happy and someone who was even happier.
But the story isn't quite that simple. Because while there might not be one magic number for everyone, the data does show a really crucial turning point right around that 6-figure mark.
And this is the really important takeaway. Money is not a magic wand. For the least happy 20% of the population, more money stops making a difference after about 100 grand. It suggests that while money is great at solving money-related problems, it can't fix the deeper things that cause unhappiness.
Which brings us to our next big point. If money has its limits, then what else is there? Well, it turns out one of the most powerful answers we have comes from the longest scientific study on happiness ever done.
What if the real key to a good life, the most powerful ingredient, isn't something you can find in your bank account or on your resume, but somewhere else entirely?
Let me tell you about the Harvard study of adult development. This thing is incredible. It started way back in 1938. And it has followed the same people, and now their kids, for over 85 years. They've collected everything you can think of, from brain scans to blood work to thousands of hours of interviews. It's given us a look at the human lifespan like nothing else.
So after all that time, after nearly a century of data, what's the big secret? The study's directors boiled it all down to one single powerful sentence. It's not wealth. It's not fame. It's not a fancy career. The clearest message from all that research is this: good relationships keep us healthier and happier. Period. The quality of our connections with other people is the single best predictor of a long and happy life.
So, knowing that, how do we actually go about building a good life? Well, for our last section here, let's look at a kind of toolkit with ideas from modern psychology, ancient philosophy, and spiritual wisdom. First up, from positive psychology, there are 6 proven paths. It starts with quality relationships, which fits perfectly with the Harvard study, but it also includes things like caring for others, getting regular exercise, finding that flow state when you're totally absorbed in an activity, using your personal strengths for a greater good, and having some kind of spiritual connection.
That idea of connecting to something bigger is echoed so powerfully by the Dalai Lama. His insight is this incredible paradox. Happiness isn't just something you go out and get for yourself. It's often a side effect of how you treat others. The path to your own happiness runs right through your compassion for other people.
And for a completely different kind of toolkit, we can look to the ancient Stoics. They said there are 3 sources of joy that are always in your control. First, finding joy in your own good actions. Second, appreciating the good character you see in others. And third, practicing a kind of radical gratitude, welcoming whatever life gives you without getting too attached to it.
So when you pull all these different threads together, from global AI data to an 85-year study to Stoic philosophy, a really clear picture starts to form. The good life isn't a destination you arrive at. It's not some prize you win. It's a structure that you build piece by piece every single day through your actions, your mindset, and your connections.
Which really just leaves us with one final and most important question. All this research and wisdom can give you the blueprint, but you're the one who has to do the building. Thanks so much for watching.